Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going behind the curtain of the Threepenny Opera, a real game changer in theater. We've got excerpts from the play and a fascinating foreword by Lotte Lenya. You might know her as the wife of the composer Kurt Weill. Talk about a backstage pass to history.
It really adds another dimension, doesn't it? Having Lenya's perspective, we're not just looking at the text, but getting a glimpse into how this whole iconic work came together.
Exactly. Speaking of iconic, let's set the scene a bit. This premiered in 1928 in Berlin. Talk about a city on the edge. And it became a sensation. It's this biting satire of London's underworld, and it's full of unforgettable characters and music that's both catchy and makes you think.
It really reflects that time, too, doesn't it?
Right.
The Weimar Republic's turmoil, I mean.
Yeah.
Like it shines a light on the poverty and the crime and all the hypocrisy for the people in charge.
Okay, so let's unpack the story behind the story a bit. I was surprised to find out that it all started with a revival of John Gay's The Beggar's Opera. That was a hit in London at the time.
And that's where Elizabeth Hauptmann comes in. She was Brecht's secretary, and she brought him a copy, thinking it would, spark his interest. Talk about knowing your boss.
So how did Brecht, already juggling a million projects, how did he approach this adaptation? Did he just like copy and paste?
Not at all. Brecht had his own very distinct style, and he took inspiration from Gay's work, but added his own unique spin to it, turning it into this very sharp social commentary that was unmistakably his.
And then there's Kurt Weill, the composer. What I think is really cool is that Weill wanted to bring serious music to the people, like bridging that gap between, high art and what audiences actually wanted to listen to.
Yeah, he really saw the Threepenny Opera as this perfect platform for that vision. He believed that music could be both sophisticated and popular, and he was definitely right.
So we've got Brecht, the social critic, and Weill, the musical innovator. What a team. From what I gathered from Lenya's perspective, their collaboration was kind of like a creative tug of war, but in a good way.
They definitely pushed each other. Can you imagine Brecht, like, humming melodies and suggesting chords to Weill? It's amazing they blended their artistic visions and created something so innovative.
And to think they did all of this without even having a producer or a theater lined up, that just shows their passion and belief in their vision.
Absolutely. But they found a champion, Ernst Josef Albrecht. He was young, ambitious, and had just taken over the Schiffbauerdam Theater in Berlin. He wanted a show that would make a statement, and the Threepenny Opera, even unfinished, caught his eye.
It's funny he almost scrapped the music. Imagine the Threepenny Opera without Weill's iconic score.
Right. Albrecht thought Weill was too avant-garde, too out there for the public, and he even secretly hired another composer just in case.
Talk about a close call. Thankfully, he came around to Weill's style. But from what Lenya describes, getting to opening night was pure chaos. Like last-minute casting changes, disagreements, a feeling that the whole thing was going to flop. It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Oh, you can totally feel the pressure they were under. One actress had to leave to be with her dying husband. Another actor dropped out. Some even protested the lyrics.
And then you've got Lotte Lenya, a dancer and actress with no formal singing training. Can you imagine learning your first operatic role phonetically? In English, no less.
Lenya was a natural, though. Her performance as Jenny is legendary, and she even had this encounter with a blind beggar who recognized her voice from the stage. Talk about making an impact.
Now, we can't talk about the Threepenny Opera without mentioning Mac the Knife, right? It's become so iconic, it's almost bigger than the play itself. But did you know it was a last-minute addition?
It's true. The actor playing Macheath, Harold Paulson, wanted a grand entrance, so Brecht wrote the lyrics, like overnight, inspired by those Moritat songs, those street ballads about criminals. And Weill composed the music just as quickly, even knowing what kind of hand organ he wanted.
Wow, talk about creative genius under pressure. But here's a twist. The song almost didn't go to Paulson. Brecht ultimately gave it to Kurt Jaron, who played both the street singer and Tiger Brown. Theatrical history is full of surprises.
Absolutely. Now, let's introduce our listeners to the main players in this underworld drama. At the heart of it all is Macheath, also known as Mac the Knife, a criminal mastermind with a dangerous charm. He's the ultimate anti-hero, a complex character who embodies that blurred line between good and evil.
He definitely keeps you guessing. And then there's Peachum, the king of the beggars. He runs this whole business exploiting the poor, dressing them up to, milk sympathy from people for profit. What a character.
He's a perfect example of Brecht's social commentary, Peachum I mean. He's this so-called respectable businessman who's actually more corrupt than the criminals he despises. And of course, he's McKeith's biggest rival, especially since his daughter, Polly, has secretly married this notorious gangster.
Polly's story is fascinating. Imagine being torn between your love for a dangerous criminal and your loyalty to your family. But she's no damsel in distress. Polly's clever, resourceful, and even takes over McKeith's gang when he's on the run.
Oh, and let's not forget Tiger Brown, the corrupt police chief, who's also McKeith's childhood friend.
Mm.
Talk about a conflict of interest. He embodies that whole blurred line between law enforcement and the criminal world, turning a blind eye to McKeith's crimes in exchange for favors.
So we've got like a runaway train of secrets and betrayals, and everyone is fighting for survival in this corrupt world. We've got Mackie and Polly's secret wedding, the betrayal, imprisonment, the looming threat of execution. It's like a twisted soap opera set in the criminal underworld.
And through it all runs Weil's incredible score. It's not your typical opera music. It's this fusion of opera, cabaret, and jazz that perfectly captures the play's kind of, seedy, subversive world. Just imagine those smoky back rooms and hidden alleys coming to life.
And the songs are unforgettable. Mac the Knife, of course, but the ballad of sexual submissiveness, the song of the futility of all human endeavor, the jealousy duet, the Solomon song, each one, like, reveals another layer of the play's message, but we'll dive into those a bit later.
What's so brilliant is that it's entertaining and musically captivating, but also makes you think. It makes you question everything. Morality, justice, who really holds the power?
So after all that chaos and those near disasters leading up to the premiere, opening night finally arrives, August 28th, 1928, at the Schiffbauer Theater. What a night that must have been. So what was the audience's reaction? Were they like blown away or totally confused?
Well, Lenya describes it as a bit of a mixed bag. The audience was initially pretty reserved, almost like they were expecting a train wreck. I mean, they'd heard the rumors, the predictions of disaster.
That's understandable, I guess, after all that behind-the-scenes drama. But wasn't there a turning point in the performance, like something that really sparked the audience's enthusiasm?
Oh, absolutely. There's this moment during the stable scene when the Canyonin song starts up. Lenya describes the energy in the room completely shifting, like the applause erupting. You can almost feel the audience like waking up and realizing they're seeing something special.
Wow, what a moment that must have been. From apathy to wild applause, sounds like quite the roller coaster.
It really is amazing to imagine. And from there, it seems like the Threepenny Opera just took off, becoming this cultural phenomenon we know it as today.
But even with that incredible turning point, I remember reading that the critics weren't exactly unanimous in their praise. Some were blown away, but others were completely baffled.
Well, that's often the case, isn't it? With works that challenge those conventions and push boundaries, it takes time for people to wrap their heads around something truly innovative. And the Threepenny Opera definitely fits that bill.
Amidst all of this, it sounds like Lotte Lenya really stole the show as Jenny. To go from no formal training to a legendary performance that's incredible.
It really speaks to her natural talent. I mean, she really captured the essence of Jenny, this complex character who navigates that murky world of the play. And that encounter with the blind beggar who recognized her voice. Talk about a testament to her impact. It shows how art can reach people on such a personal level.
You're absolutely right. It resonated far beyond those theater walls. And it's incredible how this play, born out of that chaos and anxiety of the Weimar Republic, continues to speak to audiences even today. It's like it tapped into something like universal about the human condition.
Exactly. Think about the themes it explores. Poverty, crime, corruption, the abuse of power. These issues haven't gone away, has they? We're still grappling with them, just in different forms. And that's what makes the Threepenny Opera so timeless.
It's a real testament to Brecht and Weil's genius. They created this work that transcends its time and place. It continues to challenge, it continues to provoke, even nearly a century later. But before we dive into the play's lasting legacy, I think we should maybe unpack the plot a bit more. What are the key events that, drive the story forward? What's at the heart of all the drama?
Well, it's a tangled web, for sure. The central conflict revolves around McKeith, our charming but ruthless criminal, and his passionate but forbidden love for Polly Peachum.
Right. Polly, the daughter of the King of the Beggars, is like head over heels for McKeith. But their secret marriage sets off this whole chain of events that threatens to destroy them both.
And Peachum is no pushover. He's determined to use this marriage to his advantage. manipulating the situation to bring McKeith down and protect his own interests, of course.
It's like that classic battle between the rebel and the establishment, but with Brecht's signature twist. The lines between good and bad are so blurred, it's hard to tell who the real villain is. I mean, Peachum, for all his talk about respectability, is arguably more corrupt than the criminals he despises.
He's the epitome of hypocrisy, right?
Yeah.
Profiting from the misery of others while claiming to be this pillar of society.
And caught in the middle is Polly, trying to reconcile her love for McKeith with the loyalty she feels toward her family. She's strong, she's resourceful, but even she can't escape that web of deceit and betrayal.
And then there's the unforgettable Tiger Brown, that corrupt police chief who's both friend and foe to McKeith. Talk about walking a tightrope. He's torn between his personal loyalty and his professional duty, and ultimately his choices have pretty devastating consequences.
So we've got this whirlwind of betrayals and double crosses, near-death escapes. It's all leading up to McKeith's arrest and this dramatic trial. That leaves you wondering, is he going to meet his end at the gallows?
Brecht really masterfully ratchets up the tension. You find yourself rooting for this charming rogue, even as you're appalled by his actions.
It's like that old saying, there's a little bit of good in the worst of us and a little bit of bad in the best of us. But before we reveal the ending, I think it's time we really delve into the meat of the Threepenny Opera, the themes that make it so relevant even today.
Absolutely. Remember those catchy songs we mentioned earlier? They're not just there for entertainment. They're deeply intertwined with the play's message. For example, the Ballad of Sexual Submissiveness. It's not just a catchy tune. It's a sharp commentary on the power dynamics between men and women and how society often views women as objects to be controlled. Pretty powerful stuff.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. It's amazing how Brecht and Weil use music to make these points so effectively. It's entertaining, but it also makes you think. Speaking of which, what other big ideas is Brecht grappling with in the Threepenny Opera?
One of the most prominent is that critique of capitalism and its inherent inequalities. Brecht exposes the hypocrisy of a system that rewards the wealthy and punishes the poor. And he uses Peachum's beggar's business as the perfect example. It's all about exploiting the most vulnerable for profit, and it's disguised as something respectable.
It's a critique that still resonates today. It's like Brecht is saying there's not much difference between the so-called legitimate world of business and the criminal underworld. Like, they both operate on greed and exploitation.
Exactly. And then there's that constant blurring of lines between good and evil. The characters are so complex, often doing both noble and despicable things. It makes you question your own moral compass.
It's not black and white. It's all shades of gray. You've got McKeith, a murderer and a thief, but he's also capable of genuine love. He even shows moments of compassion. And then you have Peachum, the respectable businessman who sends his own son-in-law to the gallows.
Talk about moral ambiguity. Brecht is forcing us to confront that complexity of human nature and challenging us to examine our own judgments. Are we so quick to label people as good or bad without considering those circumstances that shape them?
That's a question we should all be asking ourselves. And this brings us to another fascinating theme, the role of fate, and the idea that maybe, just maybe, all our efforts are ultimately futile.
It is a sobering thought, isn't it? No matter how clever or cunning McKeith is, he can't seem to escape that web of circumstances closing in on him. He tries to cheat fate, but it seems like the cards are stacked against him.
And what about Polly? Is she just a pawn in this game? Or does she have agency? Does she have the power to choose her own destiny?
That's the beauty of Polly's character. She's not just a helpless victim. She makes choices, takes risks, and ultimately has to live with the consequences.
It makes you wonder if any of us truly have free will, or if we're all just playing out these roles we're given. But speaking of roles, let's talk about that ending. Does McKeith meet his doom? Or does he manage to, escape the hangman's noose?
Well, just when it seems like all hope is lost and McKeith is about to swing, a messenger arrives, on horseback no less, with a dramatic pardon from the Queen.
Hold on. A pardon from the Queen. It's like something out of a fairy tale. So McKeith gets off scot-free.
Not just scot-free. He's reinstated to all his former wealth and titles. Talk about a plot twist.
It's almost too good to be true. It's like Brecht is mocking this whole notion of justice, showing how easily those in power can manipulate the system.
Exactly. It's a provocative ending that leaves the audience with a lot to think about. Is Brecht suggesting that justice is arbitrary? that those with money and influence can always escape the consequences.
It definitely makes you think about how power operates in society, both then and now. What really stood out to me in Lenya's foreword was her description of their apartment in Berlin. She calls it Grenisen after a famous funeral parlor. Because all the furniture was painted black. It's like even their living space reflected this fascination with the darker side of life.
That's such a great detail. It speaks to their artistic sensibilities, doesn't it? They weren't afraid to confront the ugliness, the hypocrisy, the absurdity head on, both in their art and in their personal lives.
And you can definitely see that reflected in the Threepenny Opera. The characters, even the ones you find yourself rooting for, are so flawed, driven by these selfish desires and capable of great cruelty.
It's like Brecht is holding up this mirror to human nature, showing us we're all capable of both good and evil. And he's not afraid to challenge our perceptions,
Yeah.
to make us question who we think we are.
I also found those notes Brecht wrote for the actors really insightful. It's like you're getting a peek inside his creative process.
Oh, those notes are pure gold. They reveal how Brecht wanted to break from traditional theater, how he wanted his actors to be more than just, like, emotional vessels.
He even encourages them to break the fourth wall, to talk directly to the audience. It's like he's reminding us that this is a performance, a constructed reality, and we shouldn't get too caught up in the illusion.
That's the essence of what he called epic theater. It's about engaging the audience intellectually, making them think critically about what they're seeing, rather than just passively consuming it.
Such a brilliant approach. Brecht really wanted to use theater as a tool for social change, to make people question the status quo, to shake them out of their complacency.
And that's what makes the Threepenny Opera so enduring. It's not just entertainment, it's a call to action.
So, listener, as we wrap up our deep dive into the Threepenny Opera, we want to hear from you. What resonated with you the most? Was it the music, the characters, the social commentary, or something else entirely?
What struck me was the sheer audacity of it all. The way Brecht and Weill took a form as traditional as opera and turned it on its head, injecting it with this raw energy, this biting social critique. It's a masterpiece that continues to challenge, continues to inspire.
It's a work that really defies easy categorization, doesn't it? It's a play, it's a musical, it's a social commentary, it's this mirror reflecting all the complexities of human nature. It's a work that stays with you long after the curtain falls.
So as you go about your day, keep your ears open. You might just hear a snippet of Mac the Knife playing somewhere, or catch a glimpse of Peacham's cunning in the business world. Or maybe you'll see Polly's strength and resilience reflected in someone you know.
The Threepenny Opera is more than just a play. It's like a lens through which we can view the world, with all its beauty, darkness, and contradictions.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. What would your own Threepenny Opera look like? What stories would you tell? What injustices would you expose? What music would you use to bring it all to life? It's something to ponder, something to inspire, and perhaps even to act upon.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.